The engine screamed behind me before I even saw the light in the sky. I was standing on the ridge above the wheat fields when the streak of fire cut across the clouds. It moved too fast to be a meteor, and too smooth to be anything natural. I dropped my tools and watched it curve, slow down, and vanish behind the tree line near the old quarry. My chest went tight. Nobody flies into this valley. Nobody ever has, not once in my whole life. This land has a name outsiders use in fear, a name printed in red on every star map that reaches this part of the galaxy. They call it the Forbidden Zone. I call it home. I grabbed my radio and called it in before I even started running. My voice came out steadier than I expected. Unknown craft, West Quarry, moving fast. Everyone stay sharp. By the time I reached the crash site, smoke was curling up from a scorched trench in the dirt. The ship was small, narrow, built for speed rather than comfort. Its hull was a strange gray metal that seemed to drink in the moonlight instead of reflecting it. A hatch on the side hissed and dropped open, and 3 figures stumbled out, coughing, moving in a jerky panic that told me they had no idea where they had landed. They were tall, thin, with long limbs and skin like pale blue stone. Their eyes were huge, built for darkness, and right now those eyes were wide with fear. One of them looked at me and froze completely, like a rabbit caught in a light. I raised my hand slowly, showing I carried nothing sharp or heavy. "You're hurt," I said. "Let me help." The tallest one straightened up fast, trying to look strong even while shaking. "Where is this place? Why does nothing show life? Why did they say nothing could survive here?" I almost laughed, but I kept my face calm. "Plenty survives here. You just landed in the one part of the sky nobody bothers to check." They exchanged glances, and I could see the fear shift into something else. Confusion, maybe even a flicker of hope that they had escaped whatever was chasing them. I learned their names quickly. The tallest was Vex, clearly their pilot, sharp-eyed and quick to recover. The smallest was Ilsa, younger, still trembling, clutching a strange device to her chest like it was the only thing keeping her calm. The third, Doran, said almost nothing at first, just kept scanning the tree line as if expecting an attack from the shadows. "You are human," Vex said, studying me the way you'd study something unexpected in a museum. "But humans do not live in this sector. This sector is empty, sealed. Everyone knows this." "Everyone outside," I said. "Everyone who never bothered to look closer." Before I could explain further, a deep boom rattled the ground, and a second light tore across the sky, brighter and angrier than the first. Vex's head snapped up, and every ounce of relief drained from his face. "They found us," he said quietly. "They followed our trail." "Who?" "The ones we escaped from. A patrol fleet. We took something from them. Something they want back badly enough to break every rule about entering this region." I felt my pulse pick up, not from fear, but from something closer to readiness. My grandmother used to say that trouble in this valley never stays trouble for long, because the land itself seems to push back against anyone who comes here with bad intentions. I never fully believed her until nights like this one. "Get behind the ridge," I told them. "Now, follow me and stay low." They didn't argue. Fear is a great motivator, and right now these 3 had plenty of it. We moved fast through the trees, ducking beneath low branches, boots and strange metal footwear crunching over dry leaves. Behind us, the second ship began its descent, slower and heavier than the first, clearly a larger vessel meant for force rather than speed. By the time we reached the old barn where my family stores harvest tools, my neighbors were already gathering. Word travels fast in a place this small, and within minutes I had 6 people standing with me, none of them soldiers, none of them armed with anything more dangerous than farming equipment and old hunting rifles passed down through generations. But every single one of them had the same look in their eyes. Calm, unshaken, ready. Ilsa stared at them like she couldn't understand what she was seeing. "These are your defenders? These are the ones who will face a patrol fleet?" "These are my neighbors," I said. "That's usually enough." The patrol ship touched down in the open field near the quarry, and 4 armored figures marched out, weapons raised, moving with the confidence of soldiers who had never once faced resistance. Their leader spoke through a translator device, voice flat and mechanical. "Return the fugitives and the stolen cargo. This sector is under quarantine. Interference will not be tolerated." I stepped forward before Vex could say a word. "This sector isn't under your quarantine," I said. "It's under ours." The leader tilted his head, clearly confused by the response. "There are no registered inhabitants in this region. Records confirm this territory is void of civilization." "Your records are wrong," I said. "They've been wrong for a long time. That's kind of the point." I could feel Vex watching me with something between confusion and awe. He probably expected me to run, to hide, to hand over the fugitives just to avoid trouble. Instead, my neighbors spread out quietly around the field, moving with the ease of people who had walked this land their whole lives, who knew every rock, every dip in the ground, every shadow where a person could stand unseen. The patrol leader raised his weapon slightly, more out of habit than actual intention. "Step aside. This is your only warning." "No," I said. "This is yours." What happened next wasn't a fight in the way outsiders imagine fights. There was no chaos, no wild shouting, no desperate scramble. My neighbors simply closed the open ground around the patrol team with calm, practiced movement, cutting off every path back to their ship. Old Devon released a low whistle, and from the tree line came the sound of engines starting, our own vehicles, worn and patched but always ready, boxing the patrol ship in from every direction. The patrol leader's confidence cracked for the first time. He looked around at the tightening circle of ordinary people who showed no fear, no hesitation, and clearly no interest in backing down. "This region," I said, stepping closer, "was marked forbidden generations ago. Not because something dangerous lives inside it, but because something stubborn does. People who refused to be controlled, people who built their own way of living far from anyone who wanted to tell them how to survive. Every empire that ever sent scouts here learned the same lesson. They stopped coming. They just never bothered updating their maps to say why." The leader's eyes flicked toward his crew, then back to me, calculating odds that clearly weren't in his favor anymore. "Lower your weapons," he finally said to his own team. "We will report the region as uninhabitable and hostile." "Hostile isn't the word I'd use," I said. "Protective fits better." They retreated without another argument, boarding their ship in tense silence, lifting off into the night sky until the light of their engines faded completely. The valley went quiet again, filled only with crickets and the soft rustle of wind through the wheat. Vex approached me slowly, his earlier fear replaced by something closer to respect. "You didn't fight," he said. "Not really. You didn't need to." "We never do," I said. "Most people who come here looking for trouble leave looking for an excuse to forget the whole thing happened." Ilsa finally allowed herself a small, shaky laugh. "The galaxy tells stories about this place. Ghosts, monsters, things that swallow ships whole." "It's easier to believe in monsters," I said, "than to admit ordinary people built something the rest of the galaxy couldn't break." Doran, silent through most of the night, finally spoke. "Why keep this hidden? Why let the fear stay instead of correcting it?" I thought about that for a moment before answering, because fear keeps us left alone, and being left alone is exactly how we like it. We spent the rest of the night repairing what we could of their ship, sharing food, answering questions about a life they clearly never imagined existed beyond old warnings and dark rumors. By sunrise, their vessel was patched enough to fly, and the three of them stood at the open hatch, watching the fields glow gold in the early light. "We owe you," Vex said, "more than words can cover." "Then tell your people the truth," I said. "Not the whole truth, just enough to keep the warnings alive. Let them keep believing this place is something to fear. It works out better for everyone that way." He nodded slowly, understanding settling into his expression. The galaxy fears a legend. It never once considered the truth might be simpler and far more solid than any legend could be. Their ship lifted into the sky minutes later, disappearing into the clouds, leaving the valley exactly as quiet and unnoticed as it had been the night before. I stood on the ridge again, the same spot where it all began, watching the light fade into nothing. The Forbidden Zone would remain forbidden, its true nature buried under generations of rumor and myth. And somewhere out among the stars, a small crew would carry home a story that no one would fully believe, about a quiet, overlooked region of space that decided long ago it would rather be feared than found.